Back in the 1990s, my first trip to Pattaya and Thailand, and I do remember getting a book about Lonely Planet, or Rough Guide, I can't remember, and it said these are the do's and don'ts about visiting Thailand, what you must do and what you must never do. And I've tried desperately hard to get a copy of that book, but I couldn't find it. So, from memory, what are the things that we was always told about this country which are now not applicable, but don't matter anymore? I've had a think and I've come up with about 10 things. Let's go. You must never go in an upstairs bar. That was in Lonely Planet. Never ever go upstairs in a bar. And I think they were talking about Bangkok. And back in the 90s, there was a certain type of bar that were what we call in the UK a bit of a clip joint. Somewhere where you would receive services, say. Maybe a young lady would come and sit with you. And in the end, you would be given a huge bill for your time, or even given a bill for the cold towel that you were given. And if you had an argument, no good, because they'd get some big hefty bouncers, and you'd never ever come out smelling of roses. I've got to say, there are those type of bars around. Certainly there are those bars that are kind of around still. Maybe there's some in Bangkok. I haven't been out in Bangkok for a while. And one or two bars, certainly on Walking Street, which are more tourist orientated to Eastern European women. Be very careful when you go there. Make sure you know what you're getting into. But I'd say there were some really, really good upstairs bars as well. And if you just turn around, here's a good example of one. This is Dollhouse on Soy 15. Upstairs is Club Electric Blue. Now, I'm sorry, you're going to get dizzy because I'm going to turn around again. Club Electric Blue used to be that bar there, and then it moved to that bar there. And by the way, for those who don't know, that used to be Baby Dolls, where I used to be the manager, where I first really started getting a bit of a name for myself as a manager through social media and networking or whatever. So there are good bars upstairs. The Windmill has an upstairs which is really, really good. Everybody talks about Kink in Soy LK Metro, which is good. And of course, who can forget Heavens Above? It has closed now, but for years and years and years was a really, really great bar as well. So don't go to upstairs bars. Be careful, but generally there are some real hidden gems and some great bars. And generally, I have to say, you go upstairs in bars, there usually is a little bit naughtier upstairs, so it might be a thing to do. Get up them stairs and have a lot of fun. Do not have anything to do with drugs in the Kingdom of Thailand. That was the advice in 1996. And anybody that's coming to Pattaya post-COVID, who hasn't been here for a few years, this is the biggest change that you are going to see in this city. It is the legalisation, or so-called legalisation, of marijuana. Now, it's a very emotive subject, I know, and it is still going through legal processes, so nobody's quite sure what the situation is. But what I am sure about is all you can see everywhere these days is these marijuana shops in this town. You also smell it everywhere you go, which is really off-putting for me. I know a lot of people, a lot of other people. Yes, I know it's an emotive subject. Maybe you can comment it on the down below. And here's an interesting thing. Have a close look at this. This clearly used to be a money exchange shop. But now there's no money in money. There's money in marijuana. And just to remind you, whilst marijuana is, let's just say, pseudo-legalised, it's kind of is and it isn't. Things like cocaine, heroin, hard drugs, these are definitely no-nos. Also prescription drugs, things like Viagra and other things like that, they are actually illegal without a prescription. So be very careful if you're caught with those on you. But as far as the rule about getting a death penalty for having marijuana on you, that has now gone. And it leads us very nicely onto my next point, which is make sure you always come to Thailand with plenty of cash and traveller's checks. Yes, remember those traveller's checks. You used to go to Thomas Cook or whatever, and you used to sit there and sign your name on about 100 bits of paper like you were some famous movie star, and then you used to countersign them when you came to the country of your destination. And then you used to go to an exchange booth, which this used to be, or a bank, or even a hotel sometimes, and you used to get money back. That has now changed with the internet and with global banking and electronic banking. So now in places like Le Pub, which is my bar, and also Milk, which is my new bar, nice little plug there, you can pay using Google Pay, Apple Pay. You can also pay using debit or credit cards. They used to say in the old guidebooks, don't give your credit card out to anybody in Thailand. It will get scammed, it will get skimmed, and your details will go. As somebody with deals with taking electronic payments, let me tell you, but the encryption now and the security, 2-3 levels of security, are really, really good. So don't be too worried about paying something electronically. There's also, of course, Wise and this new payment system I've heard of, which is called Revolut. I've personally not heard of that and not experienced it, and apparently it's very popular in America, but not so popular and not available in certain European countries. So there's no need to bring traveller's checks. I'd always say bring some cash, and if you do bring cash, of course, the tip about making sure that the banknotes are nice and crisp, they're not marked, ripped or teared, is still correct today. But don't worry too much, you can now pay electronically all over Pattaya, including my bars. Continuity point, the hat's back, I've found my hat. Never get on an empty BAHT bus. That was something I was told, I think I read about it in the aforementioned Traveller's Guide back in the 90s. And back then it was kind of true, because it was a bit of a scam where the driver would basically want to know where you wanted to go, and then charge you an inflated price rather than the 10 baht which they were supposed to. And in fact, the whole thing about BAHT buses is really complicated. People ask me, can you do a video about BAHT buses, because sometimes I get on a BAHT bus and it says it's going one place and then it doesn't go. And I've got to say, I've been living here for 14 years now, I haven't got a clue. They seem to have a mind of their own, but generally I would say don't be too scared of getting on a BAHT bus if you're travelling solo and if there's no one else on it, because usually it will take you, to the place that you want to go. Of course, it's 2023 and we've now got services like BAHT and Grab Taxi which have come on board. I think you know, personally speaking, I'm not a massive fan of those, but they are very popular. You've also, of course, got the good old trusted motorcycle taxi guys, and I could do a whole video about those as well. Maybe I will do in the future. Always be careful about those. Find out the price, negotiate the price before you go. And those people who always ask me, I want to learn to speak Thai, what should I do? Really good one is to start off with the numbers, so you can do things like negotiate with a taxi driver or with a motorbike taxi driver, because that will really get you. It's a really practical thing to learn. But don't travel solo on a BAHT bus. I would say that's probably advice that you can ignore. Always have a phone card with you, because you might want to phone home. Thank you, E.T. Yes, that old chestnut back in the 90s about you must be able to get in contact in an emergency with your mum or your granny or whatever. So get a phone card. Remember phone cards? You could actually buy one in the UK, or you could come here and buy a phone card. Hello, you're right, mate. And I get this all the time now. And you sometimes used to see whole shops or booths dedicated with these really old-fashioned looking phones, where people used to sit and, you know, talk to mum and dad back home. And even these, I'm getting really sentimental for the UK in a minute. I'm going to go and eat some fish and chips and get in a London taxi and all that sort of stuff. These sort of things used to be everywhere in Pattaya, but now not so much, because clearly we are in the internet era. You've not only got services like Skype, which are very good by the way, but also services like Messenger, Line, WhatsApp, and you can just phone for free and keep in touch. And of course, does anybody actually make phone calls anymore? You can always, of course, text or email Those are the ways that we communicate now. So have a phone card and make sure your phone home is one that can be confined to the history books. Okay, here's the big one, the one that everyone always talks about, the biggest rule in Pattaya, the 3-day rule. And I'm going to tell you now, I heard about this first in 1996, and I'll tell you now, it's as rubbish today as it was back then. Saying that you must not be with a lady for more than 3 days, and that is a golden rule, you must never ever change it, is complete rubbish. And I'll tell you why. Because every person that you meet on this earth, when two people come together, wherever it is, in any country, in anywhere in the world, it is a unique situation. It will never happen. It has never happened before. It will never happen again. And to say that every girl that you are going to meet in Pattaya starts to run down the batteries, if you like, after 3 days is completely wrong. And I've always thought you just need to treat people as individuals rather than just commodities. It's very important, because you can go into a relationship, whether it be 3 hours or 3 days, with a clipboard and tick things off. Oh yeah, that's my spec. Yeah, she's doing the right things there. I wanted to do this. But it then becomes very, very clinical. And you don't want that. It's two people coming together. So the 3-day rule, please completely ignore that. If you feel good about the person that you've met, then just feel good about it. When it starts to feel bad, then let it go. But if it continues to feel good, then hang on to it. This is Mr. Egg's relationship advice here. And talking about girls, things that I hear a lot about girls, and I remember hearing this in the very first week that I was here. If you have a hotel room and it is very nice, the girl will be more impressed with you. For the life of me, I really don't get that one. I don't think that, if you look at the way the girls live with their parents, and then when they come and live here in Thailand, in Pattaya, it's very, very simple life. And I honestly don't think that they look at luxury and opulence in that way as being anything that they really desire. Yes, they'd all like a nice handbag, they like gold, they like shoes, but a nice hotel room, personally speaking, I don't think is that important. You might have noticed we're on LK Metro, and we've come here because back in the day, back in the old days when it was all fields and there was buffaloes and everything, this whole soy was all travel agents. There were 2 go-go bars, there was Champagne, which is that one there, there was Lolitas, and everything else was either a guest house, a restaurant, or a travel agent. And travel agency is the next thing we're talking about, because it's basically travel advice you were given back in the day, in the 90s. There were 3 things that I can think of which now don't mean anything. The first one is always have a pen with you, because you need to fill out that form. Remember, they used to hand out a form on the plane that told the authorities where you were staying, what your name was. For some reason, your occupation was on there, and that was called a TM6. The TM6 has now been scrapped temporarily until the end of March 2023. It may be coming back in, maybe not. But for now, I mean, it's always handy to have a pen, but there's no need to have one, so you need to fill out that form. And when you were going back and leaving Thailand, in the old days, you won't believe this, but you had to actually pay to leave the country. There was what's called an exit tax, and it was basically money that went into the, well, it might have gone into the certain high-ranking pockets, but it was supposed to go to pay for things like tourist destinations and sites and doing up the place. It was basically a tourist tax, but there was an exit tax, and it was 500 baht, and you had to pay in cash when you left the airport, which at those days was Don Muang. So that one is outdated. And another one I can think of, people used to say that the fast track immigration service when you got to Pattaya was a waste of time. I would say now, not from personal experience, but from looking at photographs of when people are arriving at Suvarnabhumi, the new airport, that it's really important you think about possibly having fast track, because that means that you pay a little bit extra, but you'll get through the immigration queue a lot quicker. One piece of advice I was always given when you landed at the airport: if the immigration queue that you first come to is very busy, then just leave that, move on, keep walking, and there will be one further on down the road. So a few travel tips for you here in my old stomping ground of LK Metro. You can always spot a ladyboy by her Adam's apple. Now, every time we mention ladyboys in videos, we get massive numbers, which is why we've included this one. We're outside the same bar where we made a video and it was a massive hit, Katozaurus here on Soy Diamond. Lovely bar, lovely people. But this old myth about being able to spot a ladyboy by certain things, big hands, something about missing a rib, I seem to remember that one. I think it's all rubbish, really. I have to say, I think when you're a newbie and you come to Thailand, I've seen a lot of newbies get attracted to ladyboys not knowing they're ladyboys, because in my opinion, as I've said before, ladyboys try and be like Western women, so they try and look like Kim Kardashian or Pamela Anderson or something, and that's what a Western man, his eye is clearly into that sort of thing, until he's been here in Asia for a while, and then he gets an eye for an Asian girl. And I always think Asian women tend to look a little bit more shy and demure and everything. So is that a myth that I have busted? Spot the Adam's apple. I don't know. I don't go around looking at ladyboys' Adam's apples, to be quite honest, but a lot of people have said that it's very difficult to spot in that way these days. Always best to just politely ask, of course. So ladyboys myth, I'm not sure. So there it is, modern Pattaya with its lovely street art, although it does look a bit dirty, is completely different to what I first experienced back in the 1990s. And maybe you have had your memory jogged about certain things you were always told about this country not to do or to do, and now you don't have to worry about. So let me know in the comments down below if you wouldn't mind. See you in my bar, Le Pub, and also my brand new bar, Milk. It's on Soy Diamond. And in the meantime, how about if you're thinking of living here in Thailand, but you're not sure, and you might, I've got a tips, 10 reasons why you might not want to come and live here in Pattaya. And it's the next video coming up, so stick around. But for me, Mr. Egg, see you later. Bye. I'm going to move away from the shop now. You can see a load of the day shift's arrived. They haven't got made up yet.